Quite literally in the last few seconds, the judge handing down his sentence to Sean Diddy Combs, who he has ruled will spend 50 months in prison. So that's just over 4 years in prison for his crimes. Sean Combs has already been in prison.
Diddy's life inside prison just got worse. Not a little worse. Not a minor setback or a rough week that fades into the background. We are talking about a violent incident inside a federal correctional facility in New Jersey that has already begun reshaping his entire prison experience. And the consequences coming out of it are serious enough to put his release timeline, his privileges, and his daily conditions all under threat at the same time. His adjustment to life behind bars was already struggling before this happened. And now the most recent development has pushed things to a level that his legal team cannot simply spin away with a press statement. The full story of where things stand for Diddy right now is more complicated and more sobering than the headlines alone suggest. Stay locked in. But real quick, if you're serious about winning in the rap game, I put everything I know into one ebook. I'm talking how to actually grow an audience from zero, how to get labels reaching out to you with deals, and even how to get paid in this industry without ever touching a mic. And nah, it's not too late. People love to say the wave passed. It didn't. New artists and new hustlers are blowing up every single day, and the ones eating are the ones who started now instead of waiting. It's only $39. That's a few cups of coffee for a blueprint that can change how you move in this game forever. Links in the description bio, go grab it. Then let's get back to the video. Yo, what's good, fam? Real talk. We are about to take you inside everything that has gone wrong for Sean Combs since he walked through the doors of a federal prison. We are talking about a man who spent 3 decades as one of the most untouchable figures in American entertainment, a billionaire mogul who built an empire from nothing and lived a life most people can barely imagine. Now sitting behind bars, dealing with violations, altercations, and disciplinary consequences that are reshaping his entire experience in federal custody. The full picture of what has been happening to Diddy inside that institution is far more complicated, far more revealing, and far more sobering than most people realize. We are breaking it all down right now. To understand how far Diddy has fallen, you have to first understand how high he was. Sean Combs did not just become successful in the music business. He became one of the defining architects of an entire era. From the moment he launched Bad Boy Records in the early 90s, Diddy built a commercial empire that reshaped what it meant to be a black executive in America. He signed artists who became legends. He brought Biggie Smalls to the world. He produced records that defined the sound of a generation and introduced an entire era of hip-hop to the concept of the remix and the shiny suit aesthetic. He built the Sean John clothing line into a multi-million-dollar brand that won him a Council of Fashion Designers of America award. He launched Revolt TV, expanded into spirits with Ciroc Vodka, ventured into fragrance, hospitality, and entertainment investment, and was consistently mentioned in the same breath as the most powerful businessman on the planet. Forbes repeatedly placed his net worth north of $1 billion. He received the BET Hip Hop Icon Award. He sat front row at fashion shows. He served as executive producer on films, and his name carried genuine weight in every room it entered. He was not just a rapper or a producer. He was a brand. He was an institution. He was the kind of figure that other powerful people wanted to be photographed standing next to. And for nearly 3 decades, he moved through the world like someone who had been touched by something extraordinary. Like the rules that applied to everyone else simply did not apply to him. Private jets across continents, luxury estates in New York, Los Angeles, Miami, and Atlanta, yachts anchored off the coast of the French Riviera, tables at the most exclusive restaurants on earth. Every room he walked into, he owned. Every event he attended, he commanded. That was the life of Sean Combs for the better part of 30 years. And the distance between that life and where he is today is almost impossible to fully compress into words. And then it all collapsed. Fam, we are not talking about a slow decline or a quiet fade from relevance. We are talking about one of the most dramatic public falls in American entertainment history. In October 2025, a federal judge sentenced Sean Combs to 50 months in a federal correctional institution after a jury found him guilty on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution, violations of the Mann Act. He was acquitted on the more serious sex trafficking and racketeering charges, but the conviction that stuck was still enough to send him away for more than 4 years. The judge handed down the sentence, and just like that, the man who once commanded the attention of the entire world became federal inmate number 52111-054. His projected release date, accounting for time served during his pretrial detention, was initially set for May 8, 2028. At the time of sentencing, it was later updated to reflect good behavior credits that moved the date up to February 2028. But everything about that projected release date now exists under a cloud of uncertainty. And the reason why is exactly what we're about to break down for you. So check it. Diddy arrived at Federal Correctional Institution Fort Dix in New Jersey on October 30th, 2025, just weeks after his sentencing. Fort Dix is a low-security federal facility located in Burlington County, New Jersey, and it houses roughly 4,000 inmates. That number alone tells you something important. This is not a small, quiet facility where a famous name can move through unnoticed. 4,000 inmates means 4,000 different personalities, 4,000 different backgrounds, 4,000 different sets of expectations about how people conduct themselves in that environment. The facility is known for its residential drug abuse program, which was one of the primary reasons Diddy's legal team specifically requested placement there. His attorney, Tenny Garagos, filed a letter asking the Bureau of Prisons to recommend Fort Dix so that her client could, quote, address drug abuse issues and maximize family visitation and rehabilitative efforts. The legal team was also working an angle that most people overlook. Successful completion of a 12-month residential drug program at a federal facility can result in a significant reduction in sentence length, which meant that in theory, Diddy was looking at getting out considerably earlier than even the adjusted February 2028 date if everything went according to plan. That is what was supposed to happen. That was the strategy. Then reality set in. But here's where it gets real. When Diddy first arrived at Fort Dix, he was not immediately placed in the general prison population with the rest of the 4,000 inmates. Sources told ABC News that upon his arrival, he was housed in the facility's special drug treatment unit, a separate housing environment for inmates participating in the rehabilitation program. That program offered structure, routine, and a degree of separation from the broader inmate population. It was not freedom, it was not comfort, but it was a controlled environment with a specific purpose, and it gave Diddy a defined path forward. His attorney described his early days at the facility as focused. His team was crafting a public narrative around personal growth, rehabilitation, and quiet adjustment to institutional life. Early photos that circulated showed Diddy in a gray knit cap, smiling, looking relaxed as he interacted with other inmates in the facility's common areas. One of those inmates he was seen speaking with was former NBA player Sebastian Telfair, a fellow Brooklyn native who had been serving time at Fort Dix. On the surface, Diddy appeared to be settling in, but behind that surface, things were already beginning to come apart at the seams. Now let me break down for y'all what happened before the fight even took place, because the prison altercation did not come out of nowhere. It came after a pattern of adjustment struggles that started almost immediately after Diddy arrived at Fort Dix. Just 4 days after he was transferred to the facility, on November 3rd, 2025, Diddy made a phone call that violated Federal Bureau of Prisons regulations. According to prison documents obtained by CBS News, Diddy called a woman and spoke with her about visitation plans. During that call, he asked about having 200 singles brought in, though the documents did not clarify how he intended to use the money. Midway through the conversation, Diddy asked to speak with someone referred to as the digital person about blogs. The woman then added a third unknown male to the line. That move was a direct violation of Bureau of Prisons policy. Federal inmates are only permitted to speak with people on their pre-approved call list, and three-way calls are explicitly prohibited due to security concerns about coordinating outside activity or bypassing monitored communication channels. When prison officials confronted Diddy about the violation, he told them he had not been given an inmate handbook or gone through orientation, so he was unaware of the rule. Prison officials were not moved by that explanation. They recommended a 90-day suspension of his phone and commissary privileges. The disciplinary action was filed on November 4th. That happened to be Diddy's 56th birthday. The disciplinary paperwork landing on his birthday was the kind of detail that felt almost poetic in how brutal it was. His spokesperson, Judah Engelmeyer, pushed back on the characterization, claiming the call had been initiated by one of Diddy's attorneys and was protected under attorney-client privilege. But the Bureau of Prisons does not make carve-outs for calls it cannot verify. and the documentation described the call as personal, not legal. Either way, just days into his sentence, Diddy had already triggered a disciplinary process. His adjustment to prison life was not going according to the plan his legal team had presented to the public. Real talk, let us talk about the job Diddy landed inside Fort Dix, because this part of the story has gotten some attention and it deserves context. Shortly after arriving at the facility, Diddy was assigned to work as a chaplain's assistant in the prison chapel. That job is considered one of the most desirable assignments an inmate can receive at Fort Dix. The chapel is air-conditioned. It offers a degree of freedom to move around and congregate with other inmates in a relatively calm environment. The duties involve maintaining the chaplain's religious library, cleaning the office, organizing religious materials, and assisting with scheduled services and record keeping. Diddy's spokesperson confirmed the assignment and told reporters that Diddy described the environment as warm, respectful, and rewarding. For someone who once managed a global business empire from the 61st floor of a Manhattan skyscraper, the image of Sean Combs organizing religious pamphlets and cleaning a prison chaplain's office represents one of the starkest contrasts imaginable. Or within the context of Fort Dix, it was actually a position that other inmates actively sought out. It spoke to Diddy's ability to navigate the social dynamics of the facility well enough to land a sought-after role early in his sentence. At least for a while, things appeared to be moving in a manageable direction. So check it. Let us think for a minute about what Diddy left behind and what he was now living inside of, because the contrast is almost incomprehensible. Before his arrest, Diddy's daily life operated on a scale that most human beings will never experience. He had access to private jets that transported him between his properties without the inconvenience of commercial airports. He employed full-time personal chefs, housekeeping staff, personal assistants, security detail, and stylists. He attended exclusive events where his presence alone was considered newsworthy. He moved through the world with the kind of freedom that money at his level purchases, which is not just material freedom, but freedom from schedule, from oversight, from consequence. Inside Fort Dix, that entire reality vanished. Every morning begins with a mandatory count where inmates stand by their bunks while correctional officers confirm each number. Meals are institutional, movements are scheduled and monitored. Recreation time is limited and occurs within designated areas. Every phone call is recorded and subject to review. Every purchase goes through a commissary system with strict limits. The autonomy that Diddy enjoyed for 3 decades does not exist in any form inside those walls. There is no personal assistant to handle problems before they reach you. There is no legal team on standby in the next room. There is no security detail creating distance between you and the world. There is no publicist to manage the narrative in real time. There is just you, a small bunk, a cell block, and a set of rules that apply to everyone equally, regardless of how many platinum records your name is attached to. The federal prison system was not built to accommodate the psychology of someone accustomed to operating at Diddy's level of wealth and power. And as his situation has demonstrated over and over again since the day he arrived at Fort Dix, the adjustment to that environment has been anything but the smooth, focused rehabilitation story his team tried to present to the public. But here is where it gets real. Let us now get into the incident that has reshaped everything. According to multiple reports citing sources with knowledge of the situation, including coverage from TMZ, ABC News, Fox News, and Complex, Diddy got into a physical altercation with another inmate at Fort Dix. The confrontation reportedly started when the other inmate made a disrespectful remark directed at Diddy. Sources indicate that the comment was the spark that set the whole thing off. Rather than let the remark slide or remove himself from the situation, Diddy escalated the verbal exchange into a physical confrontation. According to sources, what followed involved both men throwing punches and engaging in shoving before correctional officers intervened and separated them. Sources describe Diddy as having, in their words, held his own during the fight. But holding your own in a prison confrontation and avoiding the consequences of that confrontation are two very different things. Correctional officers stepped in, restored order, and the immediate aftermath of the altercation set into motion a series of disciplinary responses that are now hanging over every aspect of Diddy's remaining time at Fort Dix. Now, this is where we got to address the consequences, because fam, they are serious. Following the fight, prison officials reportedly placed Diddy in solitary confinement, formerly known within the federal system as the Special Housing Unit. The Bureau of Prisons did not confirm specific details about Diddy's conditions, with the spokesperson telling multiple outlets that the agency does not comment on conditions of confinement, disciplinary matters, or information regarding individual inmates. But multiple sources with knowledge of the situation confirmed that Diddy was removed from the general population and placed in isolation following the fight. Solitary confinement in a federal correctional institution is exactly as harsh as it sounds. An inmate in the special housing unit is confined to a small cell for the vast majority of each day, typically 22 to 24 hours. Interaction with other inmates is eliminated entirely. Recreation time is minimal and occurs alone in a small outdoor cage or indoor space. Meals are delivered to the cell. Access to programming, work assignments, the chapel, the library, and virtually every social or institutional activity is suspended. The psychological weight of that kind of isolation compounds quickly, particularly for someone who spent decades surrounded by the constant noise and energy of the entertainment industry. Research consistently shows that prolonged isolation in correctional settings creates measurable psychological effects. Anxiety increases, sleep patterns deteriorate. The absence of social stimulation creates a kind of mental pressure that does not ease the longer someone remains in that environment. For Diddy, who built his entire life around being surrounded by people, by collaboration, by the energy of studios and boardrooms and event venues and tour buses, the silence of a special housing unit cell represents something far beyond simple punishment. It is a complete inversion of everything his daily existence was built around for 30 years. And it is a fundamentally different kind of confinement than general population. One that carries its own set of consequences that extend well beyond the immediate loss of privileges and programming access. The real kicker, though, is what the fight could mean for Diddy's projected release timeline. Before this altercation, Diddy had been on track to benefit from good behavior credits that had already moved his projected release date from May 2028 forward to February 2028. There was also the possibility of additional sentence reduction through successful completion of the residential drug abuse program, which could have shaved even more time off his sentence. Federal inmates who maintain clean disciplinary records and actively participate in programming can accumulate earned time credits that accelerate their release. But disciplinary violations, particularly those involving physical altercations with other inmates, put all of that at risk. The Bureau of Prisons has the authority to review earned time credits, revoke accrued good behavior credits, and adjust projected release dates in response to documented disciplinary infractions. A prison fight is not a minor note in an inmate's file. It is a serious incident that triggers a formal disciplinary process, a hearing before the institution's disciplinary committee, and potentially a range of sanctions that can extend beyond solitary confinement. Whether Diddy loses days, weeks, or a more significant portion of his good behavior credits as a result of the fight depends entirely on how that disciplinary process plays out. But the uncertainty alone represents a significant setback from where things stood before the altercation occurred. Let me break down for y'all why the transition Diddy made into the general population matters to this story. When Diddy first arrived at Fort Dix in late October 2025, he was housed in the Special Drug Treatment Unit, a more structured and separated environment within the facility. That setting provided a degree of insulation from the broader inmate population. But at some point, Diddy transitioned out of that unit and into the facility's regular housing population, where he was living among the full complement of roughly 4,000 inmates. That shift placed him in a significantly more unpredictable environment. Fort Dix, despite being classified as a low-security institution, is still a federal prison housing thousands of people with a wide range of backgrounds, affiliations, and social dynamics. A former celebrity arrives carrying both the visibility and the assumptions that come with that visibility. Some inmates may extend respect, others may view a high-profile arrival as an opportunity to establish their own reputation through confrontation. It is a dynamic that facility administrators are well aware of, and it is one that experienced inmates understand how to navigate carefully. Diddy, by all accounts, had not yet fully mastered that navigation, the phone call violation, the reports of alcohol being found in his vicinity, which his team denied, and now the fight. Each incident tells a piece of a larger story about how difficult the adjustment has been. Now, this is where we got to look at the bigger picture of what all of this means. For someone serving a federal sentence, behavior inside the institution is not just a matter of personal conduct, it is a currency. Disciplinary records influence housing assignments, institutional work eligibility, access to programming, and most importantly, the eligibility for earned time credits that can reduce sentence length. Inmates who maintain clean records, stay out of conflicts, complete assigned programming, and demonstrate consistent positive behavior are positioned to exit federal custody under the most favorable conditions possible. Inmates who accumulate violations, get into fights, and end up in the special housing unit face a path that becomes progressively more difficult to navigate. The system is designed to reward compliance and penalize conflict. Every incident that goes on Diddy's disciplinary record makes the road ahead slightly longer and slightly harder. And the fight at Fort Dix represents the most serious incident yet in a sentence that has been marked by a series of smaller missteps from the very beginning. Real talk, let us bring this whole thing together in a way that connects every single thread. Diddy arrived at Fort Dix on October 30th, 2025. Within 4 days, he made an unauthorized three-way phone call that triggered a disciplinary recommendation of a 90-day loss of phone and commissary privileges. He secured the chaplain's assistant job, which was a bright spot in an otherwise rocky start. Reports surfaced about alleged alcohol found in his area, which his team denied. Then came the transition out of the drug treatment unit and into the general population, placing him in daily proximity to thousands of other inmates. Then another inmate reportedly made a disrespectful remark. That remark turned into a verbal confrontation. That confrontation escalated into a physical fight involving punches. Correctional officers broke it up. And then Diddy was moved into solitary confinement, where he now sits while prison officials conduct their disciplinary review. That is the sequence. That is the full chain of events that brought one of the most powerful men in the history of American entertainment to a solitary cell in a New Jersey federal prison. One remark, one decision to engage rather than walk away. And suddenly, the release date that was already years away became even less certain. The real question is what happens next, and the honest answer is that it is deeply unclear. The Bureau of Prisons will complete its review. There will be a disciplinary hearing before the institution's disciplinary committee, where the facts of the altercation will be weighed and formal sanctions will be determined. Those sanctions could range from extended time in the special housing unit to the loss of good behavior credits, programming eligibility, or work assignments. At that point, the picture of Diddy's immediate future inside Fort Dix will come into sharper focus. But even before that process concludes, the news of the fight has already done something significant on its own. It has intensified the public conversation around his incarceration in a way that nothing since the sentencing itself has managed to do. Because this development is not about legal strategy or courtroom arguments or what position his attorneys take in front of a judge. This is about what happens when all of that is behind you, and all that remains is the raw, unfiltered reality of institutional life alongside 4,000 strangers, structured routines, severely limited freedom, and the constant presence of people who do not see a music legend when they look across the cell block. They see another inmate in the general population navigating the same rules as everyone else. That reality is exactly what Diddy is now confronting every single day. Fam, at the end of the day, Diddy's situation inside Fort Dix is a reminder that the walls of a federal correctional institution do not care about your resume. They do not care about your Grammy nominations or your Forbes ranking, or the number of times your face appeared on the cover of a magazine. They do not care about how many #1 records you produced, how many celebrities showed up to your parties, or how many zeros were once attached to your net worth. The system treats a billionaire music executive the same way it treats everyone else who passes through its intake process. The same rules apply, the same counts happen every morning, the same disciplinary consequences follow every violation, and the same uncertainty about release dates hangs over your head, regardless of how high you once flew. Sean Combs spent decades building an image of invincibility, of a man who moved through the world entirely on his own terms and reshaped the culture around him through sheer force of will and ambition. Right now, he is sitting in solitary confinement in a New Jersey federal prison, with no staff, no assistants, no handlers, and no control over what happens next. He is waiting to find out how much damage one prison fight has done to a release timeline he has been counting on. That is the reality. That is where we are. And based on everything we have watched unfold since the day he walked through those Fort Dix doors, his journey through the federal prison system is nowhere close to the smooth, strategic rehabilitation story his legal team tried to construct for public consumption back in October. His life inside got worse, significantly worse. And how much worse it gets from here depends entirely on whether he can find a way to navigate an environment that has made absolutely clear it will not make a single exception for who he used to be. What do y'all think about Diddy's situation inside Fort Dix and how this fight is going to affect the rest of his sentence? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and click on the video on screen for more content just like this. 1.